My Lords, this government has taken decisive action to tackle plastic pollution. We banned single-use vapes from June 2025 and plastic wet wipes from spring 2027. We've introduced extended producer responsibility for packaging, implemented simpler recycling reforms, and our deposit return scheme launches in 2027. We will, in addition, soon publish a circular economy growth plan for England, and that will include opportunities for the chemicals and plastics sector, and we are actively pursuing an ambitious global plastic pollution treaty.
Thank you very much for that, and a lot of that is very encouraging, but at the moment only 9% of plastic waste is ever recycled. The majority is incinerated, landfilled or exported to other countries with weak regulation. The industry treats the plastic packaging tax as a routine cost. So I want to really ask the Minister to explain how strong the extended producer responsibility is going to be, because if you do it fully, you can get companies to change the content of what the plastic is, which makes it, A, better for the society and better to recycle. For instance, in the USA, a box of Subway wrappers at the moment costs the company $50, and the EPR, if fully implemented, would be $49. However, if they used a natural polymer, the EPR would drop to $5. So much like the sugar tax, you can get people to reformulate if you do it fully and hard. And that I am not sure about yet.
Well, I think that the noble Baroness makes a really important point that if we're going to bring in these kinds of reforms, we have to make sure that they're going to do what we want them to do. And therefore, we have to work very closely with business. The EPR for packaging is now live. And from year 2 of the scheme, packaging disposal fees are going to be modulated so that more readily recyclable packaging will cost less and harder to recycle packaging costs more, because that's the direction we want to drive things to. You know, what we're trying to do is create a direct financial incentive for businesses to reduce non-recyclable plastic packaging and switch to more recyclable alternatives. And as part of that, clearly we need to monitor how well that's operating, how well we're delivering it. And I think that what the Noble Lady talks about is important to take into account within that process.
Is the Minister aware that 8 out of 10 of the top councils on recycling in England are led by the Liberal Democrats? Yeah. Would it surprise her to learn that when it comes to Green-led councils, they are not even in the top 20? And Mid-Suffolk, their only majority council, comes in at 162. And when they controlled Brighton, it was one of the worst in the country.
Well, I'm quite shocked to hear that the Greens are not as good as we would have expected them to be. I'm sure the noble lady opposite may have something further to say on that.
Actually, I think that's just me, and I'm going to say something else. I'm sure the noble lady knows that there's accumulating medical evidence of the damage to human health done by microplastics, impaired immune systems, cell damage, and affected metabolic systems and so on. So getting this done quite quickly is important. I just wondered if the noble lady, the minister, would make a recommendation to number 10 to take on the noble lady Baroness Boycott as an advisor, because she seems to know what she's talking about.
I would certainly agree that the noble lady Baroness Boycott knows what she's talking about. She has spoken authoritatively and knowledgeably on this for many years. But the noble lady is absolutely right to talk about microbeads, microplastics. And as I said, we are going to be publishing our circular economy growth plan fairly soon. We need to ensure that we do tackle the issue of microbeads and microplastics.
My Lords, disused fast food containers contribute significantly, as we know, to litter and to plastic pollution. Can I ask the noble Baroness, the Minister, to review the definition of natural polymer used in the plastic packaging tax to accelerate the use of natural polymers beyond cellulose, which is the only natural polymer defined in the plastic packaging tax, in food packaging to make it more fully recyclable?
I do think the Noble Lady makes a really good point. I think one of the things that's often confusing about recycling, about composting, is confusion about definitions and actually what that material does, how it breaks down. I think she makes extremely good points, and I will take those points back to the department.
Labour. My Lords, an enduring legacy of the last government is potholed roads in every city, town and street. This can be fixed by partially replacing bitumen with plastic waste, which makes roads cheaper, smoother and more durable. Can the Minister say what proportion of plastic waste is being recycled for road building, and what plans do they have to encourage its greater use?
I have to admit I have absolutely no idea what proportion is used in this, but I actually think this is really exciting. I think there's a huge opportunity here, and I think I know it's something that the Department of Transport has been looking at. I know it's something that certain local authorities have been looking at, and I do think it's something we need to investigate further.
My Lords, our country is reliant on exporting plastic waste, whilst it has been reported that 21 plastic recycling and processing factories across the UK have closed down in the past 2 years. What steps is the government taking to reduce exports of plastic waste and support investment and jobs here in the UK?
Well, plastic waste exports, I'm sure the Noble Lord is aware, are subjected to pretty strict rules that are set out in existing legislation. But it is important that we continue to review this because we do need to make sure that we improve the way that we manage our waste and we manage our recycling. So our focus is basically on ensuring at the moment that the plastic waste that we export is treated appropriately and that there's also a level playing field for domestic recycling. We're also currently consulting on further reforms potentially to the PRN system, and the measures that we are looking at the moment are to create that level playing field between UK domestic reprocessors and exporters. And importantly, we need to reduce the risk of fraud and error.
My Lords, may I ask the Minister what progress is the government making in revising school uniform policy to require PFAS-free alternatives so as to allow families to buy from suppliers that are known to avoid PFAS-based finishes?
I'm sure the Noble Lady is aware that we did publish our PFAS plan in February. And then for the first time ever, that sets out how government is going to minimise the harmful effects of PFAS. What we need to do is look at how we can move to safer alternatives while continuing to monitor any detrimental effects. It's very important with clothes for children, for example, we don't cause any harms.
Lady the Minister. Go ahead. Who is it?
My Lords, is the Noble Lady, the Minister, able to tell us if the government is supporting the Women's Institute's splendid initiative on microplastics, which is a campaign to ensure that filters, special filters, are fitted to all washing machines to avoid the reproduction of these microplastic elements?
Well, the Noble Lady has taught me something. I wasn't aware of this campaign. The Women's Institute is a splendid organisation. I'm very glad that she's drawn my attention to this. We are really keen to work in this area and to look at how we can look at, as I just said, looking at alternative ways to reduce particularly microplastics, which obviously leach into the water system through clothes in washing machines. So I will look into this further and thank her for drawing it to my attention.
Noble Lady the Minister agree with me that one of the biggest practical difficulties in all this is separating out plastic from general waste. Is the government going to get involved in incentivising the earlier separation of plastic from general waste?
I mean, the Noble Lord is right, and of course one of the issues as well is inconsistency across the country into how that's done, which can confuse people when they're staying in other places. I think the key to resolving that issue is the work that we're doing with local authorities, because this is a local authority responsible, but government needs to work with local authority so they have the resources and the powers that they need in order to make this work effectively.
Earlier question about microplastics and human health. This could cost the NHS a huge amount of money, and so it is quite an urgent matter. So would the noble lady take that message back to number 10 as well, please?
Well, one of the things that we are doing is working much better cross-department, including with the NHS. So I will ensure that they are aware of her concerns specifically on this issue.